YouTube, it's Kathy, and this is my weekly entertainment wrap-up for June 16th through 22nd. This week I read 2 books, I watched 1 show, I watched 1 movie, and I listened to 1 book. First this week I finished an anthology called It Came From the Closet. This is queer reflections on horror, and it's all these different authors. I believe it was 25 different essays talking about different horror films and how they related to queerness. So, you know, exactly what you would expect from the title. Now, obviously being an anthology, I can't really tell you too much about this because, like I said, there were 25 separate parts to this besides like the introduction and then the acknowledgements and all of that type of stuff. But I can tell you that this really made me want to either rewatch horror movies that I haven't seen in a really long time, or watch the ones that I never got around to watching, or watch ones I'd never heard of. These essays do obviously talk about the details of these different movies, so if you haven't seen the movie in question, it's probably going to be spoiled for you, but for the most part, these movies have been out since like the 80s or something. So if, like me, you've somehow just never got around to watching the Halloween movies, some things will be spoiled. Oh no. It's not like you probably haven't been spoiled for them before. All of that being said, there were lots of different experiences talked about. There were some that were very relatable, and obviously that's going to change from person to person. And I'm very glad I finally got around to reading this collection. I am about halfway through a book that is on my TBR, but last night decided I wouldn't have enough time to finish it before this weekly wrap-up, so I decided to divert my attention and then read Snapdragon, which is a graphic novel I picked up from the library recently. Also, somebody must have talked about this recently because I've known about this graphic novel for a while, but I actually put a hold on it and picked it up the other day. Something tells me it was Alex, but I'm not entirely certain. In any case, this is a book about our titular character Snap, or Snapdragon. She is in fact named after her mother's favorite plant. This is just a thing that happens in her family. And as we meet her, she's telling us that in her town there's this woman that everyone thinks is a witch, and she doesn't believe in witches. However, her dog is missing. She's pretty sure that this witch eats pets, so she's going there to see if she can find her pet, and she finds her pet there, and he's missing a limb, and the witch has eaten the limb, but the witch hasn't actually eaten the limb. What turns out happening is the witch actually found Good Boy on the side of the road and fixed him up. From here blooms a wonderful friendship between Snapdragon and Jax, as we find out the witch is called. And then Snap also makes a friend at school who is also really into watching like witchy horror movies, and they bond over that. And then I don't want to give too much away, but maybe Jax is a witch, maybe Jax isn't. And maybe, just maybe, Snapdragon's family has crossed paths with Jax in the past. I really enjoyed this. We got queer representation from a few different generations. We got these adventure elements, we've got these learning elements, we've got these people who are just accepting each other for who they are, and it was just so lovely. I read it very, very quickly. In fact, I hadn't actually gotten my steps for the day last night while I was reading it, so I was actually wandering back and forth in my room reading it and getting my steps in. As for the show we watched, that was more episodes of Doctor Who. We finished the 2nd season and we're into the 3rd season, and the thing that I've been waiting to happen happened, and yes, I can see why people cry a lot. I maybe cried a little. And then I went upstairs to tell my roommate, who's seen all of Doctor Who, about it and be like, oh yes, the thing that I've been worried about happening finally happened. The Doctor and Rose, they were separated. She's like, what time? And I'm like, oh, I see how it is. So part of me is a little bit annoyed that I know that they'll probably see each other again, but also happy for the characters, if that makes any sense. I was although very happy with myself when I realized that Martha's mom is also the queen on Bridgerton. One of the recent episodes had somebody who was a cop on Sherlock. Also, the most recent episode we watched had Mark Gatiss in it, not just as somebody who wrote the episode, but we saw his face and we saw his ass. As for the movie we watched this week, we went way back to my childhood to a movie that is 30 years old now, and we rewatched True Lies. This is an Arnold Schwarzenegger movie where he is in fact a spy for one of the agencies in the United States. I don't think they actually say which one he works for. But then obviously he has a wife and a daughter and a cover job and all of these types of things. And one day he comes to the realization that his wife, who he absolutely adores and loves, might be cheating on him, and all of this is just miscommunication. There is somebody who is trying to get her in bed, but that hasn't happened and she wouldn't let it happen, as it turns out. So he figures that if she wants some excitement in her life, he is going to show that to her in the middle of this big investigation that he's doing, by the way. And that leads to a very iconic scene where Jamie Lee Curtis does a striptease for like a stranger that is actually her husband, and it's just incredibly iconic. If you've never seen this movie, you need to watch it. It's action, it's comedy, it's Eliza Dushku's first role, I'm pretty sure, because she plays their daughter. And rewatching it reminded me how much Fubar made me think of True Lies while I was watching Fubar. All around, excellent action flick. Highly recommend. As for the audiobook I listed this week, that was Kaikeyi. This is a book that fulfills a couple of prompts for the Queer Lit Readathon, one being non-European mythology, and the other one being magic, because this definitely has that. This one has the scope of a sweeping epic and probably only takes place over about a couple of decades of Kaikeyi's life. As we meet her, she's 12 years old and she's playing with her brothers in the palace because she's the firstborn, although she's a girl, so who cares about that. And they're playing a game of hide and seek when suddenly the Raja is like, hey, I need to talk to you guys, and he never talks to her, so she's like, what? And it turns out that their mother has left the kingdom. She later finds out it's because he banished her, and she's pretty bummed about this because, like, neither of her parents were really great with her, but at least her mom kind of talked to her sometimes. So from that point, she's really having to step up into this role of kind of running things and trying to figure out how to run a palace. But then she also realizes that she really wishes that she had the studies that her brother get, which have to do with defense and war and that type of thing. While she's trying to figure out a way to get her mother to come back, she comes across this scroll and she learns this meditation that puts her in this place that she calls the binding plane. And what that is basically she can see all of these little strings, and they're basically the connections between her and other people, and she can see how healthy that connection is, whether or not somebody has animosity towards her. It's basically these cords that are either thicker or smaller depending on how strong that bond is, and she starts using this magic to her advantage to kind of build this security system. But of course, since she is the eldest daughter, she's only good for one thing, and that's being married off to somebody else, and that happens far sooner than she would have liked, especially because she's heard other people talk about being really excited about for when they get married and they get to do certain acts, and she does not care whatsoever about those certain acts. She eventually feels a pretty strong platonic love for her husband, but she's not interested in the other things, which is where our queer representation lies. I could go on and tell you much more because so much happens in this story, but I want to leave it there just because I've already told you so much that you don't know at the beginning. This book is about gods and goddesses and magic and pacts and knowing that what you're trying to accomplish is correct and having everyone ignore you because you happen to be a woman, which is so frustrating. No matter how much Kaikeyi proves herself, people look down on her when she's just trying to save the kingdom. This book was truly fantastic, and while I was wandering through a bookstore the other day, I happened to see that this author has at least one other book, and I'm definitely going to look into picking it up because I really enjoyed the writing in this one. That's it for this week. If you've read, watched, or listened to any of these, let me know about it down in the comments below. On the way down to the comments, if you hit that subscribe button, that would be very nice of you. If you don't feel like leaving a comment but want to make sure that I know you were here, just leave me an emoji or smiley face if you happen to be on your keyboard. Some people have asked if there's a way to financially support this channel, so I set up a Ko-fi account, which is a digital tipping service. The link for that, as always, is down below. You can like and share this as you see fit, and I will see you very soon. Bye!